From crease to crease and corner to corner, Bettor Hockey Now is NHL fantasy and betting done better. Step into the dot for Bettor Hockey Now on the Bettor Sports Network.
Welcome into episode number 9 of Bettor Hockey Now here on the Bettor Sports Network. I'm Adam Bernard, and with me, as always, are my line mates, Mr. Anthony Rivera and Mr. Christopher Morais. Fellas, how are we doing today?
It's another day without hockey. We're just chugging away here. We're just getting there.
Slowly but surely, chipping away. We're almost in what we could consider late July here, and then once August hits, you can technically say preseason and training camps open next month. So we're not that far away. But one thing we will be doing today is another mock draft here to help you get you through the dog days of summer. If Shakespeare had a Midsummer Night's Dream, we have a Midsummer Mock Draft for you here on Bettor Hockey Now. So we are about a minute and a half away from our 12-team head-to-head points mock waiting room. We do apologize that we have to use ESPN's site because that's all that's available. Listen, ESPN, no offense or anything. You do a lot of things right in sports, but your fantasy interfaces, not much there. You get by because your name's ESPN, and that's where people look first. But there are other platforms that are better, and when they get their hockey ones going, we'll have a better mock draft. It does suck to have a 30-second clock here.
I'm going to try to pull this draft off on my laptop. I got you guys really tiny on a screen, and then I have the big draft board. I got to make sure that I take off the auto draft, which I did incorrectly last time.
Go. And we're tiny because the Devils had an awesome offseason, so they're.
I'm tiny too in this screen.
And I do have my Whalers shirt on today.
Beautiful.
A little glassbangers.com shirt. Love that site. Got about 30 seconds here to go for the till our mock draft begins here on Bettor Hockey Now. And then, coming up in the next few weeks, we might be off next week, but then coming up here, we're going to start doing some fantasy preview. We'll have centers and wingers one week, goalies and D-men the next, do another mock draft, and then we'll have some a dynasty preview. We've got a few more mocks lined up here to get you through with the season starting in October. So we'll have a few of those for you with a nice season preview. But here we go. We're going to get the mock draft up on the screen. There we go. And the draft room is open. And draft, here we go. All right. So, we know it's going to be Connor McDavid, number 1. We know it's going to be Draisaitl, number 2. And then the draft kind of goes from there. Is there anybody in particular that you're targeting at that 5 spot, Ant?
You know what? I may go homer this round. I might have to go Jack Hughes, and I'm saying this not just because I'm a Devils fan, but how high-powered this offense is going to be coming into the year. We already saw what Jack Hughes can do last season, but now you add a full season of Timo Meier. You got Toffoli coming into the fold, and that they might be ready to go. I might have to pull the trigger on that.
Today I'm going from the 8 spot, and I think that's going to be let's see who's still there, who from like the top 5 potentially falls down to me. And it looks like, Chris, you're at the 11 spot for this one, or the 12?
I'm at the 11 spot. Not exactly the turn, but I mean as close as we can get to it.
That's actually one of my favorite spots to draft from, is that because if I can't be on the turn, that 11 is good because you can kind of get your strategy in line, and you really only have to worry about one team really, picking you off here and there, and you can work around it. So I do love that spot.
If I'm not picking in like the top 3 or 4, then everything else after that kind of just meddles into what it is. I'd much rather have the turn.
Much rather have the turn, but the sound, I made that mistake last week. All right, so Anthony, we are on the clock here. Let's see, Connor McDavid, Elias Peterson, Leon Draisaitl, and Austin Matthews go. Are we going with your guy?
This is a mock draft, baby. We're having fun. It's our second one. I'm going Jack Hughes. Man.
There's nothing wrong with that. He's going to produce this year.
I'm here for it.
So Tkachuk and Pastrnak go next. I'm on the clock here. I mean, do I really just not take Nathan McKinnon? I mean, this is a forward D format, so I mean the position doesn't really matter too much here.
Great choices.
If we had center, left wing, right wing, I would go Rantanen in here, but I got to take Nate McKinnon there.
Now, is that only a ESPN thing where they don't tell you if he's a right winger, left winger, center?
So there are four. I mean, I'm in one league where it is just a forward, defenseman, goalie format.
Okay.
So there are leagues like that, and I think for ESPN, even we're having a mock draft. The fact that they're even offering any mocks is great, but I
Yeah,
don't think
for
they're
sure.
getting too specific with letting us change things around too much. So Chris goes defenseman with the pick 11 there. Cale
Nice.
Makar. If you're going to take a defenseman in the first round, that's the guy.
Yeah,
Now
absolutely.
I'm gonna shock the world here.
Uh-oh.
Somebody had told me this once, and at first I was not on board with it, and then I got on board with it once. I had my best year in fantasy ever, so I'm gonna go back to back defensemen here. I'm gonna take Cale Makar and Rasmus Dahlin, who I expect to be
Ooh,
the two
Wow.
best defensemen in the NHL fantasy
wow.
wise next year.
Now, I am a big believer, and I said it on the last one. You got to have at least one cornerstone defenseman, and then like a second one that's right there. I'm not going to go back to back defenseman early, and I don't expect Carlson to have the season he had last year, but I still think he'll be very productive. Got to grab him here and at least shore up that cornerstone D spot with my second round pick. Anthony coming up on the clock here. He got his franchise cornerstone, both rooting wise and fantasy wise, with Jack Hughes at the 5 spot. Coming back again here. Tim Stutzel went before him, then Jake Attinger between me and Anthony. He's going to take Roman Josi out of Nashville. Certainly not a bad play for a defenseman there.
We each got some defensemen that'll provide some offense, so that's what you want when you're in fantasy hockey.
So there goes Connor Bedard early in the third round, which I believe when we had our last mock draft, we said that's probably a good spot for him to go in a non-dynasty.
Yeah, that sounds fair. That's where he should be.
Timo Meyer off the board there and just misses out on the Devils double dip. Igor Shesterkin off the board. Alexander Georgiev, another goalie off the board. And he's going to take Kucherov there. And if he's healthy and plays, that's certainly a great guy to have up there. Eichel and then Mika Zibanejad goes. So now I'm back on the clock. Linus Olmark is still out there. I got to take the reigning Vezina winner. I can't not take it. I mean, I was hoping I would maybe get Ilya Sorokin, but that's not going to happen. So
that was the goalie I wanted, so that kind of puts a foil into all those plans that was going to happen there.
Sorry, dude.
Let's go here. I'm gonna take. I need some offense at some point. So, the best goal scoring Toronto Maple Leaf, not named Matthews, is William Nylander. So that's who I'm gonna go with there.
So that's your first pick on the pseudo turn, we'll call it, or the half turn. So Nylander, and then between is Barkov and Pietrangelo. UC Saros also off the board. Another goalie went right after my pick. So I mean, goalies are starting to move here. So you still got a Vasilevsky out there, but then it starts to get real thin after that.
I don't know what's wrong.
Not
with
anymore.
Vasilevsky. I don't know why he keeps dropping. I don't know who he hurt.
Vasilevsky's gone now.
So 2 defensemen go with Montour and Morrissey. I'm back on the clock here. I got to look back at my. I got to get back to forward here. JT Miller's right there. I almost want to take him, but I sorry. I'm going to take Hischier. Sorry, bud. Sorry, Ed.
Oof.
Sorry to snipe you there. I was looking at hints, but, got to take him.
Well, tough decisions.
He's the second line center, so he's going to get better matchups than Hughes faces defensively.
I'm definitely going to, divert and go with Charlie McAvoy.
Listen, got to shore up that D right there. Got to get that blue line going. So we got Rupe Hintz, Tavares, Hintz, Moritz Seider, who I think is going to have a huge jump this year. The Nuge, Jordan Kyrou, Carter Verhaeghe, Kyle Connor go, and now it's back to Anthony on the clock here. And
you said this last game, last mock draft, that until Ovechkin goes bad, you just keep drafting him. I'm taking Ovechkin here until I see otherwise.
Certainly nothing wrong with that. All right, so I'm back on the clock after Ovechkin goes to Anthony. We got Alex DeBrincat and Travis Konechny going. Pierre-Luc Dubois is very tempting here. Very, very tempting. sorry to take another Devils player from you, but I want 2 good defensemen up top, and Dougie Hamilton will definitely provide the offense behind that power play. So now I've got my 2 defensemen there with Carlson and Dougie Hamilton, and I'm happy with that.
I think if I did not take Roman Josi, I would have been a little more upset about this move. But you got to get the points. Dougie Hamilton was huge for me last season, and it's a great move.
So we got Pierre-Luc Dubois, who I was considering, goes right after me. Bo Horvat also, in a format where you have face-offs, Bo Horvat is a very good player to have. So then Clayton Keller gets taken there by Chris. Somebody's got to put the goals in the net in Arizona, and he's probably your best candidate.
Yeah, absolutely.
Probably the only one who can do it. And we're going to double down on only one player who could score goals with their team. Cole Caulfield is the next one.
It certainly doesn't hurt to get a guy you like there too. Personally, Elias Lindholm, Stamkos, Joel Eriksson Ek, and Jacob Trouba all go. I am tempted to draft Dylan Larkin here, but I'm going to say, in the same vein as Alexander Ovechkin, not to the same extent, Crosby, and they're building a team there. They're really going for another run again. So I got to grab Crosby, and he'll be my third forward. So Anthony back on the clock after Dylan Larkin goes right behind me, and then Rasmus Anderson for the Flames. So we'll see what direction we're going here.
Yeah, I'm going to go with my first goalie here. And I picked him up last season. Philip Gustafsson, had a really good second half, and I think kind of took over there in Minnesota. So I'm going to take him on the draft.
And Minnesota plays defense, so you know that he's going to have that benefit too. They back check and they protect the net. So let's see. So after Gustafsson, Svechnikov goes, Adrian Kempe goes, Adam Larson, Zach Werenski, Victor Hedman, Miro Heiskanen, Sebastian Aho, Jake Gensel, who, when he stays healthy, also a great, right wing presence. Anthony back on the clock here.
Another guy, like I keep going back to the team I had last year, but Kevin Fiala was a stud for me in LA. And
I'm convinced, Anthony, that you can just see my screen here. So that's kind of fun. I need to stop putting players in the queue.
I mean, he did say we're very small and minimalized, so maybe that was part of. Maybe
I don't know what he's running in the back there, but I haven't had anything pop up here to tell me.
He's really got like a 58-inch monitor behind that he sees everything.
He sees everybody in it.
All right, I got to make a pick here, and he's still on the board. Give me Chris Letang, third defenseman. Well, I'll take that.
I see some of us have learned. Back. All right. Well, since I can't get Chris Letang, I'm going to add another defenseman to my repertoire here because you can never have too many of them. Hoping he continues to see PP1 on the best power play to ever exist, Evan Bouchard.
I mean,
now I got to figure out what I want to do with my life here. And I'm happy I have 30 seconds to figure that out.
30 seconds, man. That's all you got. So after Letang goes Ilya Samsonov, Dylan Cousins. Chris takes Evan Bouchard, who should be a fantastic power play point source. Alex Tuck, and then Owen Tippett, who could have a nice, for a bad team, Owen Tippett could really have a nice big year for them. And there goes Mark Scheifele. Nothing wrong with that in Winnipeg.
Someone has to help Kyle Connor and Nikolai Ehlers. So
now I am not going to wait any longer to get my Boston crease situated. I've got Olmark and Swayman, and I know I've got a very good goalie tandem there. Noah Hannafin goes, and then Jared McCann, which I think he's fool's gold. I would not be. I thought last year, he was one of those guys that I picked up as like, all right, this will get me through an injury replacement for a couple of weeks, and I just couldn't drop him because he kept performing. I don't know if he's going to be doing that again next year. So moving on. So moving back here. So Anthony takes Jesper Bratt. He gets his Devil at that pick. Martin Necas goes after him. Tyler Toffoli in New Jersey also got a shrewd pick by the computer there. Justin Falk, Artemi Panarin, can't believe he fell that far. Bowen Byram, Zach Hyman, Kuzmenko, Boldy, and then Anthony gets Quinn Hughes there, which is at this point in the draft is a very good offensive defenseman to grab.
He provides a lot of assists, and if you get assists as points in your draft, in your league, that's a big positive for me. It took him a while to get goals last season, but he did pick it up towards the end of the year, and he really provided some good offense. I was on the ropes of trading him at a certain point in the season, and I just held on to him, and it was the right move for me.
There you go. I mean, listen, Hughes he's going to get points back there. Vancouver's going to score goals, so that's going to be
Also,
big.
with the Brad pick, I'm kind of hoping that we get a little bit of stacking there, and he gets on that top line with Jack Hughes.
Go. There you go. So after Hughes, Johnny Gaudreau, Vladimir Tarasenko, I take Joe Pavelski with the same philosophy as kind of like until it's broke, you got to assume it's working real well, and he certainly keeps going. Chris is on the clock with his second of 2 picks. Seth Jones goes after me. Yuri Slavkovsky, Montreal after that, and he grabs Tristan Jarry, who is a good mid-value goalie that you can grab at this point. Dawson Mercer after him, Luke Hughes after him, and Chris decides Evgeny Malkin, so he double dips on the Penguins there.
I need Malkin to stay healthy again. Even if I get 55, 60 games out of him, I got a point per game range. Hey, you can't find that this deep in the draft anymore, so I'll take it.
I could go with a guy that I almost took at the last pick, but I'm really looking I'm really looking to load up my blue line. Am I gonna do it? Yeah, I got to take No, I got to take Kopitar. I almost took him at my last pick. He's still there on the long turn. I got to take him. So, again, the Kings. I'm big on the Kings this year out west, and I think they're only going to be better with the additions they've made, and we'll see how the goaltending holds up. But Kopitar is another old, steady, reliable guy that you can count on in all those categories that he usually provides it. All right. So after Kopitar, Vince Dunn, Eli Tolvanen, Ivan Barbashev goes. Anthony's required to take Ivan Barbashev at some point in the draft, so he gets him in round 10. I don't know if he could have waited any longer. It might have been gone, but
Trigger finger on that one. Let's see what we got here.
Don't blame it on the clock. It was going to happen. It was whether it happened now or a little bit later.
Or if it was round 11 or 12. Vitek Vanacek goes, then Trocheck, Thatcher Demko, who could be a nice goalie find this year. I'm back on the clock here. Noah Dobson, Matty Beniers, Tomas Hertl, Sean Couture. I thought that's one of the untouchables for the Sharks. No two big names there, really. Let's see here. I know you guys can see everything I'm doing. So, is it time to look at another goaltender? I think it is. And I'm going to grab Stuart Skinner. Why not? He's not great, but, he'll get wins. In a league where it's just, wins, maybe goals against, he's going to hurt me there a little bit, but I'll take the victories there with Boston. That's a category I should take almost every week with the Bruins goaltending and the Oilers number 1 guy. Jared Spurgeon, Thomas Shabbat, also good value there as Chris is on the clock here making his final decision on this pick.
More goals. Patrick Laine. He can do a lot of that. So hoping all the stuff happening in Columbus is positive. Let me see if I can. I'm gonna add another defenseman here just because you can never wait too long to get one. I'm gonna go all the way. I'm gonna go to another Montreal Canadian one. I'm gonna go Mike Matheson. The only thing he doesn't do consistently is be inconsistent. So I will take my chances here. As my 4th defenseman with the stack that I've got, I'll live with it.
I almost took this guy about a round and a half ago, and now it's a little bit more of a, not to say a value pick, but it's not as much of a reach. Give me Brent Burns as my 4th defenseman with Erik Karlsson, Dougie Hamilton, and Chris Letang. I am going to be generating points like whoa from back there. So after that, Trevor Zegras goes. He could also blow up this year for sure, as he's got another year of maturity. Jeff Skinner goes right after me. Shea Theodore, and now Mr. Rivera back on the clock as we pull up his team there, and he's pretty loaded at forward. I love that Fiala pick. He's got a nice mix there, and then he takes Arturi Lehkonen, who's one of those guys who just goes all across all categories, especially if you have a shorthanded points or any sort of defensive forward categories. Provorov, Valimaki, Ricard Raquel, or as me and my buddy like to call him, Dick Rack, Keandre Miller, Jacob Verana, Devin Taves, Ryan Graves, Neil Pionk, and Freddie Anderson go. He gets Anthony, you get your goaltender there. That's a pretty good pick in round 13 for a guy who's probably going to get a lot of wins.
You can basically say, Chris, Anthony has now taken 3 players on my queue list. I am not doing this the next time we do this. I'm having a piece of paper and I'm writing everything down because this is rigged.
Don't have your mic in. Let's see here. Oh, I got to make a pick. I'm going to take Logan Couture. Listen, I know he's not really popular with Sharks fans in terms of being a captain, but the guy still goes out and gets it done and produces, and he'll be one of those producers on a team that won't have many other sources of scoring. So I'll grab Couture there as Chris is on the clock. So and with your goaltending situation now, you got Anderson, you got Gustafsson. You feeling good?
I do feel really good. I feel like Gustafson's going to be, the lead now in Minnesota, and Freddie Anderson's Freddie Anderson, and another go with that Canes team that is just, right on the precipice of possible Stanley Cup run. You can't go wrong with any of those two.
So then after I take Couture, we got Tyson Barrie, who will get some points in Nashville. Good, cheap defenseman you can get in mid to late rounds to produce. Nikolai Ehlers goes to Chris, then Shane Gostisbehere, Carter Hart, and then he takes Valerie Nichushkin. I was looking at Robert Thomas, but the computer takes him for me there. What do I want to do here? You know what? This was something Christopher talked about the last time we did a mock draft. Got to assume that the Jonathan Huberdeau season is going to be better next year because it can't get much worse. So I'll take him there.
Ooh.
Logan,
I wanted to put a player into my queue, but I'm afraid he's going to leave. So I'm just going to wait this one out.
Morgan Riley goes. Also, you can get a good source of points from the blue line at this point. Anthony takes Gustav Forsling. Certainly not a bad pick. Back on the clock again. I won't make you talk there. Jamie Benn, Pyotr Kochkov, I can't say his last name. Drake Batherson, good pick at this point in the draft by the auto pick. Sean Dursey, if you're for a defenseman in the 15th round, he's certainly going to get opportunities down there in Arizona on the blue line. So not a bad pick there. And Philip Deneau, who I believe you got last time too.
Yeah, these guys are just falling to me.
No, I'm back on the clock. And what do I want to do here? Still got another defensive spot. Not ready to. Ooh. Let's see. All right. I have to take. I'm going to grab the reigning Conn Smythe winner, Jonathan Marchessault. I think he's still going to get some nice numbers there on the top line in Vegas. Certainly nothing wrong with that.
No, not at all.
Brock Nelson, Dylan Strome go there as Chris is on the clock. Let's take a look.
Another player who scores goals. That's the motto today. That's what we've done. Chris Kreider fits that bill.
Hoping to get him on when it got back to me, but I was considering him there instead of Marchessault, but I'm gonna go with the Vegas pick.
Or not, and I'm gonna go a little bit. I'm gonna go a little bit deeper here, assuming that player is still here that I want. May not be, because I may have missed. No, he's right here. I'm going to take Jonas Korpisalo.
There you go.
I expect the Ottawa Senators to be just a little bit better than what they were last year, and I think he can at least provide value here in the we're in the pick round 16. I'm okay with that.
Yeah,
absolutely. And he's going to get a lot of playing time up there. They'll get the other guys worked in, but he's going to be the guy that they lean on and gets the bulk of the work. Jacob Markstrom still sitting out there. That's going to be my fourth and final goalie. Oh, I can't. That's it. I can't take any more goalies. I am maxed out, so I got that short up very nicely.
I am pretty short up on forwards, but to have Mark Stone fall to me and the production that he provides, even though he gets hurt, I'm kind of hoping that, I can use that to my advantage. So I'm going to take Mark Stone here.
He's one of those guys you just kind of have to accept that, like, all right, I'm going to get 40 to 50 games production out of him, and hopefully it's at periods where I need it, and just, make sure you have a good alternative on your bench for when he gets hurt, because it's coming. So after Anthony takes Mr. Stone, we start getting a little bit into the deeper parts of the draft here. Lucas Reichel, Philip Hronek, who certainly might in a second pairing role can maybe get some sneaky production in Vancouver. Gabe Vilardi, one of the centerpieces of what Winnipeg got back in the Pierre-Luc Dubois trade. He's an up-and-comer. Chandler Stevenson is going to be in that top 6 probably in Vegas again. And then you go down the list here. It looks like Anthony takes Dmitry Orlov, one of the most overpaid defensemen of the offseason, but hey, good for him, and he's going to have a good opportunity in Carolina to produce offensively. So I got to look here. You know what? Let me look at the blue line. You know what? Yeah, I'm going to take Cam Fowler here. The Ducks are going to be terrible, but he still runs that power play. He still is a steady, reliable source of production, even if it's not upper tier. Let me shore up my blue line. Listen, my top 4 are so strong that I can take a guy like Fowler there and play him at 5 at my 5th defensive spot and be fine.
I'm gonna go on some young talent here, hoping I don't think he takes a leap this year, but if he has a better, statistical year, I'll be happy with it. Owen Power. I'm hoping there is some power in whatever he can offer. And I think it's time to I just think it's time to take a rookie. I guess I've made it to pick round 18. I am going to take Adam Fantilli. It's that time of year.
So if Fantilli was not taken there, I would have gotten to me probably if the auto pick didn't take him. But listen, Owen Power, this is the year where defensemen start to take a little bit of a step forward. We saw it with Rasmus Dahlin. He's got a guy right across the locker room that he can talk about taking that next step there. So we got 15 seconds on the clock here. I can't take any more goaltenders. Man, you know what? Give me Claude Giroux. If Ottawa's going to be better, he's going to probably get some production just by association and being around on the ice with certain people. So
very productive, Claude Giroux.
So we got a few rounds left here. We got 4 rounds. Looks like 3.5 rounds left here. Patrick Kane goes there to team 9. Let's see here. Anthony takes Brad Marchand in the 18th round. Probably will go earlier in a lot of other drafts, but
yeah, I'm surprised it got this. He dropped that far.
Listen, Boston, as long as they've got that trio up front, with Bergeron and Pastrnak and Marchand, they're going to do what they do. Nick Schmaltz, I like that pick. He was, if Clayton Keller is going to be the top producer in Arizona, Schmaltz is going to be right there, number 2, and also a multi-category kind of guy. As I come back on the clock here, you know what? Give me Nazem Kadri with the Daryl Sutter effect, and that gives me a little bit more depth. That's my utility there. So I got 3 bench spots left. Chris goes on the clock here. Michael Bunting went right before that, and Ville Husso from Detroit goes to the auto pick there. Red Wings should be a little bit better than last year, but I don't have too high of expectations for them.
I took him last time. I'm going to do it again, right? The definition of insanity is repeating an action over and over again, expecting a different result. I am hoping Max Pacioretty has a different result with his Achilles. And I hate this pick, but I'm going to do it anyways because I have a feeling he's going to want to play himself out of Arizona so he can get traded at the trade deadline and go somewhere else. But he's going to have a ton of opportunities. So Jason Zucker, if he could just find a little bit of consistency in his game, I'd be a fan.
And the thing about Zucker and finding his way out of Arizona is he's like a perfect trade deadline, like plan B kind of guy. You whiffed on your target, okay, go get Jason Zucker. He's the backup guy to go get it.
I can't wait for Arizona to get like a 2nd round pick with like maybe a conditional other pick for him. I can't wait.
Best defenseman still available that I'm going to take here as my bench guy, and he'll probably start over Fowler, is Mr. Drew Doughty, usually not around this late in drafts.
Yeah.
In a banger league, he's definitely going to go earlier. Time is starting to catch up with him, but the Kings are good, so he's going to still get some numbers there as Anthony comes back on the clock.
We're going to stack our first goalie here. We're going to do Fleury.
That's a smart move. You should always try and shore up. Unless you're limited to 2 goalies total on your team, you should always try and just get a tandem, even if the backup stinks. Because if nothing else, if your ace number 1 goalie gets hurt, let's take the Rangers for a minute. If you have Shesterkin, it may sound crazy to waste a spot on Quick, but at least in the short-term interim, he's going to get the starts until you can figure out your alternate plan. So I'm always a fan carrying both goalies when you can.
And we're going to do it twice because I'm going to take Antti Raanta.
There you go.
Set.
Now, there could be a 3-headed monster in that crease this year, but we'll see. Ranta's still the guy, and Anderson's still the guy. I'm on the clock here. I'm not going to take any more defensemen. I'm going to give a little bit of my strategy there. I talked about this guy being a big. I'm not ready to go to him yet. Patrice Bergeron. Listen, at this stage in the draft, why not? Maybe I get him for his last season. Duchesne goes if.
I have no idea how this goalie got to this point. it's just one of those things, I guess, that happens when you only follow whatever rankings ESPN has put together. I'm going to take Aiden Hill. I mean, someone's got to start there.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. I mean, you don't worry about Logan Thompson trying to, being a 50-50 split there.
I mean, let's not forget Robin Leonard is also signed there. So, I mean, if I'm going to go down swinging, I'm going to do it that way. And I'm going to pick here. I'm going to take another high risk, high reward play here. Maybe a reconnection with Nathan McKinnon is going to help him, but Jonathan Drouin, if I get 55 points out of him, I am excited.
It's a 22nd round pick. This is when you throw your darts blindly and take the guys that you think you got to beat on.
And if it doesn't work out, you drop him, you move on, and no harm, no foul.
I was a big fan of this move. I almost took him last round. He's still sitting there. I think Riley Smith is going to have a good year in Pittsburgh. I'm not going to say he's going to have like a all-star season, but I think he's going to be a source of sneaky production there. So Shane Wright goes, another young talent there. Evander Kane, probably a nice little late round steal, as he seemed to have found a home in Edmonton. Certainly has the chemistry on the ice. If he can, maybe this is where he finally lives. This is where he plays his career. So that'll do. That does it for this mock draft. We're going to go over that draft in a second. But before we do that, I just wanted to remind everyone out there, the Real-Time Sports Pick'em game right now is going on. You can play the daily pick'em contest. You set a lineup of with 2 correct picks wins you 3 times your entry. 3 correct picks wins 6 times. 4 is times 10, 5 times 20, and 6 times 40. You could set a lineup of player props, hit them all and win. Baseball, golf, whatever else is going on over there at Real-Time Sports. Go over to rtsports.com/alarm. And don't forget, please play responsibly. For help, call 1-800-GAMBLER. So there we go there. We got that out of the way. Let's go back to our drafts here for a minute. Anthony, I want to start with your team as I pull it up here. You got Jack Hughes, Kucherov, Ovechkin, Fiala, Bratt, Barbashev, Barzal, Lehkonen, and Danault at forward. Which one were you? Who did you settle on there, and who are you most happy to snag?
I think I was most happy to snag Ovechkin because, we know what he does. And every time you think that, maybe his time's up. We talked about it last episode. Maybe his time is up. And if he can fall to you right at the right spot where you think he belongs, you got to take him. And I thought that was the right pick for me. And, also, like I said before, the Mark Stone, I don't have him as like the starting forward, but to have him coming off the bench, even if he's injury prone, what he provides offensively and the points that he provides really helps your team out. So, those are 2 moves that I was very happy to land.
When I look at your blue line, Roman Josi, Charlie McAvoy, Quinn Hughes, Gustav Forsling, and Dmitry Orlov, you weren't making a big emphasis on defensemen, but you certainly picked your spots where you got them. And I think you got a nice, well-rounded blue line there.
Yeah, I went, top heavy with Josie and McAvoy, but the rest are, guys that I know will give you what you need at the right time, especially, I've had Forsling on my team before. Orlov, I'm taking a chance on you, so and Quinn Hughes, what he provides, with assists, and if he could just uptick a little bit with the goals, that would be nice. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with this team, especially being able to land the goalie tandems. Like I said, with Jack Hughes and Jesper Bratt, hoping they can somehow meet each other on the same line at some point. And yeah, this I'm pretty satisfied with how this team came to be. And Chris said that I took some of his guys. So, if I'm taking some of his guys, and he's been doing this longer than me, so I got to feel good about
at the end of the year when that team wins.
We'll work something out.
You certainly got your crease short up. You got the Hurricanes 2 of the 3 Hurricanes goalies, and you got both Minnesota Wild goalies, 2 top 3. Maybe Minnesota's top 4 in the Central, but definitely Carolina top 3. So should be all set there. Now, Chris, who are the players you remember that Anthony sniped? If you remember specifically, which guys you got?
I know it was Ovechkin because that's why I took Caulfield. The other one that was sniped, actually, this was back to back. I wanted Chris Letang because I know that no matter what happens to him, he plays and he can fill out some points. Those are the ones that I do remember because they happened back to back, and that's when I realized I need to stop putting players in the queue because it is rigged somehow. I don't. It's like it goes into the other person's ears, like it just whispers internally. Jiminy Cricket pops up and it says, "Hey, take this guy now."
What Anthony doesn't tell us is that his other job is handling the interface for ESPN's mock draft, so he has access to the back room. So that's how that happened.
He does the UI there.
Now I gotta say, you getting Kevin Fiala, that one kind of,
There's another one. I'm glad you brought that one up. Yes, there we go. Kevin Fiala too.
He's a guy, like you said, he produced very well in LA last year, and I think he's only going to go up this year. So good for you on Fiala. Now let's take a look at Chris's team. At forward, we got William Nylander, Clayton Keller, Cole Caulfield, Mark Scheifele, Gino Malkin, Patrick Laine, Nikolai Ehlers, and Valerie Nichushkin. And then Chris Kreider as well. And then you look at some of the other forwards, Max Pacioretty, Jason Zucker, Jonathan Drouin, and Adam Fantilli. Same question for you. Who are you happy to get? Who did you have to settle on as a result of one of us sniping?
I don't settling. I don't think I settled too hard. There were definitely players that I like, those players that you mentioned that I wanted the upside to. But I think forward wise, considering I went 2 defensemen in my first 2 picks, I still got in a 12-team league. I still got players who can score goals, and that will forever be the thing that fantasy hockey and season longer DFS is about. You need players to score goals. You need players who score goals. In order to do that, you need players who shoot the puck. Those are players who shoot the puck a ton, right? Clayton Keller is the only able body, right, in Arizona. So if he decides to put his team on his back, he can carry them around. We know Montreal is only as good as Cole Caulfield can score. Nick Suzuki is an elite passer, so he can feed him forever. We know that William Nylander can score goals, and whatever Brad Treliving decides to do with the core 4 there, I think Willie Nylander can do one of 2 things. If he doesn't get a deal done that he wants, he's going to play himself into the deal that he wants. This is a contract year for him. How many times do we see a player in a contract year just ballistically go off? He could be a candidate for 90 points here. So I'm banking on that really, really hard. And then the rest are just, guys that are there, guys who get forgotten. Nikolai Ehlers, forgotten. Chris Kreider, forgotten. I'm not sure what's happening with Valerie Nichushkin. I kind of don't want to know for now. I'm going to have happy thoughts and hope that he is a Colorado Avalanche when the season comes around. And then, Max Pacioretty and, Jason Zucker, whatever I get out of those 2 is just, it's like having the extra chocolate sauce on the sundae. They charge you a flat rate. So I'm happy about it.
Would you consider, if you're in Washington, when Max is healthy, putting Pacioretty and Ovechkin on the same line, and then whoever's center doesn't really matter at that point?
It doesn't. I don't know if that's too much. Like, Ovechkin wants the puck at all times, and I don't want to take, it's going to be hard to take that away from him. I think those 2 can play the power play. If I remember correctly, I know Ovechkin's a right-handed shot. He sets up on that, that left side hash mark, and he just kind of buries the puck from his angle. I would play those 2 on the power play, and that would really give them a 1-2 punch, right, from either side. And then you play John Carlson at the top of that power play to, maneuver the puck around. You can have whoever else on there playing down low, or some guy standing in front of the net as if Ovechkin needs a screen to score. But as long as you have John Carlson, to me, that's what I'm looking at Pacioretty to do, a compliment to Ovechkin. 2 things are going to happen. Either you're going to protect Ovechkin, which he's going to end up scoring the most goals in NHL history. So you got to respect him a little bit. And that just leaves Max Pacioretty wide open to take a bunch of shots. I don't know if he's going to have the shot volume playing on that team, but I do expect Washington, in the division that they are, to just struggle just a little bit. I don't think their team is necessarily getting any better, but there are options there to score goals. And again, as long as Max Pacioretty's healthy, I'm happy. Maybe.
He's projected to play with Backstrom and Oshie, it looks like. What you got, Anthony?
Sure.
Yeah, you read my mind. I had daily face-off up here, and yeah, Pacioretty with Backstrom and Oshie is probably the line.
I mean, Backstrom also made a career out of passing the puck to Ovechkin, so I'm perfectly okay with that. As long as his double hips keep working, I'm I'm happy.
Shots on goal, like you mentioned earlier, that's a very underrated stat, especially in fantasy. You can get so many points just from getting shots on goal.
Yeah.
So, if you could get guys that have that high volume, those are
So many people are
picks.
worried about meaningless stats, right? The plus
Mhm.
minus. I remember in one league, every week I was minus 25 because I had Ovechkin at the time where, one of the, which one was it that was the coach there? One of the hunters. And that was probably one
Dale
of those,
Hunter.
Dale. And that was one of the, like, it was killing his offense because we needed him to play defense for some reason because the greatest goal scorer in the world and we need him to be responsible 200 feet of the ice. I didn't care. Right. The only way to score goals is to shoot the puck. You need to do that. There's no other, unless you're Joe Pavelski and you tip everything in. But for most guys, you have to shoot the puck. So if I'm shooting the puck a ton, generally, especially in the categories leagues, I'm probably also winning the goals. So those kind of go hand in hand. I'm not worried about hits. I'm not worried about block shots. I don't care about the plus minus, and I don't want anybody to at me and say it's important. It's a meaningless stat. We are in 2023. Let's come to reality. Like, leave the Internet Explorer, leave the home landline phone, leave it where it needs to be with the plus minus. I
To
don't
be
care.
fair, I still keep a landline just in case my cell service isn't great.
And I'm sure you, at least at the end of the day, look at the guy's plus minus and go, all things equal, if he's minus 20 and the other one's only minus 10, you're like, oh, maybe.
Here's what I'll say about plus minus. Before we got to a point in life where we're able to analyze all these numbers real quickly and all, it served its purpose. It's a good crude stat to kind of get an idea.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to be minus 40 by accident. Nobody's going to be plus 40 by accident. But once you start getting in that in between range of minus 10, plus 10, that
I mean, Eric
anything.
Carlson was what, minus whatever, and he had one of the best statistical seasons of his career. So it's one of those things. I don't care for that number because it just means a lot of times you have played on a terrible hockey team. Think about it. If you play for the Anaheim Ducks, you will finish a minus something. It's only going to happen. So am I going to take away things from Troy Terry and Trevor Zegras because they play on a team that's going to get throttled, which means that they have to be on the ice late in the game, assuming it's close. So they can also be a -1 because they gave up the empty net goal. So to me, especially now, like you said, there's more than, there's advanced stats everywhere. You can see a player doing everything, expected goals for, goals saved above average, all kinds of things, slot shots, everything. You can track all of that. I don't care for the plus minus. I don't care. I don't want anybody who says this player is not good defensively because of his plus minus. I want to be in a league with that guy. I want to have a 12-team league of those guys because I want to be like, yes, worry about the plus minus. I'm just going to rack up players who do everything else that I care about.
With fantasy, in any fantasy sport, I feel like you almost have to just punt a category or two if you're really going to attack your team right. Plus minus is what I punt at.
Plus minus is the number one. You cannot predict it. Even when I do predictions, they're like, what's the plus minus? I don't know. Are they going to be a little bit better this year? I'll take off 5. If they're going to be worse, I'll add 5, I guess.
Yeah, it's just it's not a category it's one thing if hey, I'm trying to chase that to steal a victory by one category at the end of the week, and you got a guy out there that's got a heavy plus, okay, fine, maybe you got to do that, but that's a category I just do not even look at when I'm drafting. I don't care. Obviously, in a banger league, you do have to look at hits and blocks a little bit more, depending upon how they're weighted and valued. But if you're not in a banger league, then who the hell cares?
Even if you are, you can find defensemen who, Luke Shen finished, I think, with the most block shots, and you can get him for free off the waiver wire. So you can add him. Maybe you drop him. Maybe you can pick him up again and then roll him out. And Andrew Peak did that. These guys were staple in my DraftKings lineups every night they played because they were just free money. You got 10 points from them from not putting up a single shot on goal or a point. I loved it.
And it's definitely how the point categories are too. Like if you're getting, 1 point or, half a point, it's a big difference from a block shot or, a shot on goal. So those tend to come in handy and it works out, especially, when you're working on the waiver wire throughout the year, you kind of tend to look at those stats, see if you can hone in and get some extra points. So it's a big, you always got to be aware of every stat that's there. The plus minus one, I tend to agree with you guys on for sure.
Before we get out of here, we're going to take a quick look at my team. And speaking of not caring if you're in a banger league, my team would not be good for a banger league. I went very heavy on offense in this draft. Let's start with my blue line. Erik Karlsson, Dougie Hamilton, Chris Letang, Brent Burns, Drew Doughty, and Cam Fowler. I don't know if there's really a problem there. I mean, even guys like Burns and Doughty are going to help me with the hits, so it's not a total wash in that regard. And going back to those categories too, what we were just talking about, Chris threw out some defensemen that you could get. There's forwards too that if the Nick Deloriers of the world, like you can do that too, and you can have a rotating roster spot just to handle these, those categories. Now, if you can do it right, you get a guy that's a good mix of categories and stuff like that. But if it doesn't go that way, that's the alternate way to handle it. But besides Burns and Doughty, I'm not going to get much hits on the blue line. But other than that, I am going to get a lot of offense from them, and I'm very happy with that because usually most teams only going to get production out of their top 2, maybe 3. I'm going to get it out of all 5.
There you go. See,
now,
because you weren't prioritizing meaningless stats, you were able to fill out a very competitive roster. And like you said, if you need to rotate somebody in there, first of all, you should always have a guy on your IR spot just in case. You should never leave that open. Second, if you do have a rotating spot because you put a guy on IR and you don't want to necessarily fill it with whatever's there, that's your rotating guy. That's like in baseball, if you're on a 6-man rotation, that's your 6th guy. He's in and out, and whatever you need to complete your week, once before you go out on a Friday, you check what you're missing on the Saturday and Sunday. And, like you said, you grab the Nick Deloriers of the world and you hope he has a game where he finishes with 8 hits. If you're in a league as well with penalty minutes, you hope maybe he gets a 2-5 and a 10 misconduct and you're good for the week. There you go. Set.
God, I love my, not to, pump my own tires too much, but, the Bruins goalie tandem, Stuart Skinner, and then the Alberta goalie tandem of Stu Skinner and Jacob Markstrom can certainly do worse than that. It's definitely tough to do better than that. Happy there. And I know, listen, goals against with Skinner might be a problem. I feel like.
Are you not concerned about Edmonton and Calgary having to play each other, though, so many times and having both your goalies face off?
Yeah, but I mean, with a situation like that, I can kind of feel out the temperature of the time. And if one team's playing much better than the other, then I bench one. Or if I feel like it's going to be a close one, we'll see. Or if I feel like the game is going to go over, then I just sit both of them. I'm not a big person. I usually trot out my goalies every time they play. You do have to pick your spots a little bit. So we go to my forward group. Nothing wrong with Nate McKinnon with the first pick, Nico Hischier second, Crosby, Pavelski, Kopitar, Couture, Huberdeau, Jonathan Marchessault, Claude Giroux, Nazem Kadri, Patrice Bergeron, and Riley Smith. If this is 3 years ago, I'm winning the damn league right now, without a doubt. Sorry, it's over.
You're getting the 60+ discount at whatever store accepts it at that age. But for hockey players, it's basically when they hit 33, 35. That's when you can kind of count them in. You got a lot there. You're getting the AARP discount.
I mean, I try to draft guys closer to me in age, so that way I feel like it's like we're part of the same team. But that's the thing. Unlike football, where a lot of talk right now with the running backs and holding out because with contracts and their shelf life. NHL players, and not everybody, of course, but there are just certain guys that are just timeless. And Ovechkin's one of them. Crosby's another. They just keep producing. Pavelski, Kopitar, Couture, and like I said before about Couture, I know he's not very popular amongst the Sharks fan base right now. They don't love him as the captain. They don't think he has enough emotion. But listen, the guy still produces. He's still out there doing his job. And like I said, Huberdeau and Kadri bounce back candidates there with getting old man Sutter out of there. He's probably just as happy to be gone as the rest of the team. And yeah, I listen. If I could get a team like this in a real draft coming up this year, I don't smoke cigars anymore, but I might go smoke one after that.
We'll send you a year's supply of Bengay for the pains and aches that those players may be dealing with just from being up in age.
Well, that's nice of you because then they can just instead of bothering their team trainers, they can just be like, "Hey, Adam, can you send the bottle?" And be like, "Yeah,
exactly."
You're going to be in Minnesota next week. What hotel are you going to be at? I'll just ship it right there.
I think Huberdeau is out with the first-year jitters. That was very painful last season.
Yeah, it was.
Yes, it was. As a Huberdeau owner, that was a time to be alive. He was I think top 2 left winger. That's how.
But he wasn't a guy you could even drop either. You had to have him and hold him until maybe last 3-4 weeks of the season. you had to have him on your team no matter what. So you were screwed.
Yeah, because there's that fear of like, all right, fine, Huberdeau's done, and you drop him, and then all of a sudden, 2 games later, he's the Huberdeau that we all know and love, and it's like, motherfucker, I wasted a whole pick on him, then an early pick on him, I should say, and then yeah, he's got to bounce back this year, and I think getting Sutter out of that room is alone will increase his production. How much, who knows? But
And don't be afraid to draft these guys who burned you, right? Short-term memory loss. Doesn't matter what they did last year. They burned you, they burned somebody else. This isn't a bad relationship. We go back to it. We say, hey, let's see what we can do this year. Change like Anthony said, second year, different coach. There's only positive here. And if you're getting him at a crazy discount, like we've seen in both our drafts, sure, why not? Right? The risk doesn't outweigh the reward here. I want high upside guys who come in and can just rack up points. Hockey's about points. We need points.
I know you can't I totally agree. You can't it's not like a real X where like, no, you ain't burning me again. Yeah. That being said, in my first year in the FSGA league and having Huberdeau, I think it was my second or third round pick, was a freaking killer. That was, and like you said, there was just that there's no trades in that league. So it's just like, it's all waiver wire. It's like, yeah, at least if like it's a trade league, maybe you find somebody to take Huberdeau at 60, 70 cents on the dollar and you get what you get out of it. But yeah, that just wasn't even an option.
And you know what? It might not even be Huberdeau again this year. There's going to be at least one person probably on each of our rosters that's going to have the Huberdeau effect. Someone is going to have an off year. It's possible. So you never know who it's going to be. You just hope for the best. And like Chris said, you just draft that high reward.
All right, fellas, we're going to wrap things up here in a minute. But we like to close out on a good thought here. What is the best moment you've ever had at a hockey game while being in the building for? It doesn't have to be like a playoff victory. It could just be like a really cool regular season win you were at. What is like a game that stands out where you had a blast and it was a good night and your team won?
I'll start here. NHL Winter Classic 2016. That year, the Montreal Canadiens were absolutely terrible, but they managed to go into Foxborough and win a game. Mike Condon was the goalie there. Brendan Gallagher also made his return, I think, from his first hand injury. I know he's had a couple since, like those hands are beat up. I think it was his first one. Made a return. I think Montreal ended up winning like 5-2 or something. It was great. I had a great time. I loved it. The Winter Classic is fun. If you have not been, you should go. It is a bucket list thing that you should get done. Completely
agree. The outdoor games. Listen, I know the NHL tends to overdo it a little bit. They've kind of pulled back on that, but I was lucky enough to go to 3 of them. I went to Rangers, Flyers, and Philly, and then technically they weren't, Winter Classics. They were Stadium Series games. The Rangers, Devils, Rangers, Islanders at Yankee Stadium. And yeah, it's like nothing else. It's just such a damn cool experience. And, maybe Anthony will join the list when they play the Flyers at MetLife Stadium over in East Rutherford, New Jersey. I mean, you might need to take that day off from work.
I might have to. Reporting live from MetLife Stadium.
Take the whole week at that point. Just, go all out.
Well, I'm a late hockey bloomer. All right. I was not around for the Devils championships. I was not, I got into hockey right around the last decade. So, 2 games stand out to me. One is obviously Game 7 from this year, going to that game and seeing that was my first Game 7, like being there live. Excitement, also nervousness of watching, going into a second period where there's no score, and it is nerve wracking. But, once you get the end result, and not to rain on, Adam's parade because it was the Rangers, but I'm pretty sure Adam has been to quite a few of these types of games and been on the winning side. And it's like a party. It's a fun party, and it was a great atmosphere. So that was one game. The other one was, I'm always a fan of when they do the Hockey Fights Cancer Nights. And there was one game that I got to go to, and I think it was, when, oh man, why am I forgetting names here? He was a former Ranger. Now I'm drawing a blank, and he's one of my Brian Boyle. Oh my goodness.
Okay.
Brian Boyle was a Devil that year. He had just come off of, the cancer scare, and he had a huge game, couple goals, and he was a player of the game on Hockey Fights Cancer Night. It was a fun atmosphere for that one as well. And I've always been a huge Brian Boyle fan, and it sucks to say that now, forgetting his name there, but I had that little, brain fart.
Hey,
But that was a
farts
fun
happen.
game. Yeah, fun game to be at.
So I do have a couple of, I was lucky enough to have split season tickets with a friend for close to a decade before I moved out to California, and I got to go to, so, I'll say, game 6 against Montreal when they went to the Cup Finals. Sorry, Chris, that was a good one. Not for you as much. I was there when Derek Stepan scored the OT game winner in game 7 against the Capitals. The previous round, the place erupted. But the one somebody actually brought up today that really sticks out for me, and it kind of goes in that hockey fight cancer mold. When Martin St. Louis' mother died during the Rangers-Penguins second round series, and then I think he missed game 4. And then everybody left the Rangers for dead going into game 5. The Penguins were going to go over them. And Crosby told the story. He said, I walked into the arena like a normal game day, and I saw Martin St. Louis on an exercise bike in like the bowels and the tunnels, around the arena.
There's
So he
video
went
of
over,
that.
he expressed his condolences on the loss of his mother. And when he walked away, he said, the first thing I thought was, we're in trouble if this guy just showed up. Rangers go and dominate game 5. They get it back to the Garden for game 6, which was Mother's Day. I never had a problem selling a Ranger game in my life, but Mother's Day night, not too many people are trying to go to a hockey game, even if it's a playoff game. So I'm not going to eat the playoff tickets. I go. You all know within, the first 90 seconds of that game, it was a garbage goal, but hey, that's why you crashed the net, because he was literally crashing the net. The puck bounces off his thigh and goes in the net. And like everybody in the building knew the magnitude behind that situation. And I mean, I've been there when Pearl Jam, rocked the place, Metallica rocked the place, 2 previous, Ranger, huge moments in Ranger history. Nothing has ever been louder than when Martin St. Louis scored that goal. The place just bonkers for him.
It was the spring of St. Louis, right? He had the big goal. What was it, in game 5 or was it game 6 that he scored the game-winning goal against the Canadiens?
It was game 3 or 4 overtime that he did that. I forget which one, but it was 3 or 4.
All I know is the Rangers showed up, and Chris Kreider,
who you drafted.
Who I did. We have I have not buried that hatchet completely. There's a little part of it that sticks out, but in fantasy, we, like I said, we put those things aside, right? We're not here to, it's not an extra offering. We're okay. It's fine. You have a job to do. I have a job to do. That's it. We find value. But I remember exactly how that went, what happened to Carey Price. And then, Dustin Tokarski came in, and
it wasn't terrible.
Was not terrible. He
not
was
terrible.
Not terrible. It's just we knew that was a time. And my favorite GIF on Twitter that I've used is the one where I think it was a couple of years later, Carey Price and Chris Kreider come behind the net, and Price just barrels over Kreider, stares down at him. There's no penalty on it, and I was like, it's not much, but it's a little win. Those are the ones that we count. But I am salty at Chris Kreider. In real life. In fantasy, it's fine. We'll get used to it. But if I saw Chris Kreider walking down the street, I would remind him of what he did and how that destroyed me.
We'll have to have the argument over how that play went down another day, because we're running out of time here. But, I am in the camp of, hey, he was going hard to the net and things happen. But I'm a little partial in that situation. I'm well aware.
Yeah. But I'm a forward too. I go hard to the net. Sometimes, you
lose control,
Yeah,
get a little too. It's like when you're running you start running fast, and then like, oh my God, I'm too fast. I'm going to fall. It's kind of like that thing, but we'll save that for another time. And maybe I'll wear my Chris Kreider jersey backwards for the next edition of Bettor Hockey Now. I believe we're going to be off next week for, I will be away. If these guys want to record, they're more than welcome to, but if not, we'll be back here in a couple of weeks on Bettor Hockey Now on the Bettor Sports Network. So for Mr. Anthony Rivera and for Mr. Christopher Morais, I'm Adam Bernard. We'll be back with you in a couple of weeks here on Bettor Hockey Now on the Bettor Sports Network.
Bettor Hockey Now is on the Bettor Sports Network.